Dan and Martin on a Monday. It is April 15th, the April 15th edition of Great Talk here on Scoops with DannyMac.com. Marty has been out the last couple of weeks. Not really out because he has been working on morning radio on KTRS radio. So you've had a busy couple of weeks, some early mornings. How did you like the morning shift?
It's a little early, Dan. I had to leave the house at 5 a.m. I did 8 days total. And you know what? If it's helping the people get their day started, Dan, then I feel like I'm doing a public service.
Did you feel like that was happening?
No, but I like to say that. People have missed out on Great Talk. I can feel the angst and the disappointment, and I'm there with you. We had some scheduling issues. I couldn't do one. Dan couldn't do one. Then I did the radio. So it's been way too long. It feels good to be back at the Scoops headquarters.
Oh, man, does it ever.
And you had the door open. You yell at me every time, close the door. Dan had the door open, and then you yelled at me and said that's because you were waiting for me.
Oh, yeah. I was waiting for you. I mean, every Monday I've been here.
You've been sitting every Monday wondering if I was going to walk in that door?
Just wondering if I might get that special visit from you, Marty.
Look at what I wore. The Scoops hat.
I appreciate that. And you're all coordinated in black and gray, which matches the hat with the gray lettering with the black cap.
I'm like Al Davis. I'm silver and black, baby.
Just win, baby.
Everything was silver and black. Mike Jones said he went to his house. Everything was silver and black. He went into his office. Everything was silver and black. His limo, silver and black. Isn't that unbelievable?
Oh, I love it,
Color coordinated his whole life.
Have you seen the 30 for 30 on Al Davis?
No, I should.
They kind of have it AI, little alternate. What? Not AI. What's the thing where they make it like 3D
computer generated or something? Computer generated,
whatever the hell it is. So those guys, it's like with Pete Rozelle and with Al Davis with some bad voice intimidation.
Why would they do that?
Imitation, I should say. It's a little morning problem I got. I need to wake up.
It sounds like a Max Headroom edition or
something.
That's
little bit
weird. Why do that?
It was a little different, but it was interesting how they talked about the relocation and just what they went through and his fights against the NFL over the years. I liked it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because he always took on the NFL. Eventually, in this city, we learned to hate the NFL, but he hated them from within.
Are we over it at this point?
For the most part, I am.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. Every time the Battlehawks get a great crowd, that's great. It's fun. It's good for them. Has nothing to do with Kroenke in terms of how he sees it, in terms of how the league. The NFL is not looking at that and saying, oh, we really screwed up. That's the narrative that's got to go away. If you feel good going to a football game and giving Stan the middle finger, if it makes you feel good, that's fine, but it's not resonating. There is no impact on the NFL.
Did the Battlehawks win this weekend?
They did.
Oh, man, I missed it.
They were in San Antonio against those pesky Brahmas. And they won the Brahmas.
Who are the Brahmas?
The San Antonio Brahmas.
What's a Brahma?
I looked this up the first year they had that name, and I've already forgotten. It's something local, and it's a name in Texas that they all know, and I don't remember what.
So it's something like an ode to the area.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Is it an animal?
Dan, I told you, I don't remember. I've had a month to prepare for this. I don't even have notes. I would have written down what a flippin' Brahma is. I believe they're coached by Wade Phillips.
So you went back to doing some news then?
News talk.
Yeah.
Dan, we would go to the White House on a pretty regular basis.
Correspondent.
With a ABC correspondent, which I kind of liked it. We'd go to the international desk in London, and you had to read up a little bit on a few of these things. And
sure.
I'd have a little talking point from, typical sports guy jargon. It's either about the game or about something that happened in your life. Man, I was getting a coffee this morning, and it spilled over, and then all of a sudden, what's the latest in Gaza? And you have to kind of shift gears quickly. Hopefully they weren't awkward transitions. But there's a lot of people up early, and you know this. You're doing morning radio. It's amazing how many people are texting, even at 6:15.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, oh, who sang that song? And then all these people are chiming in. I'm like, wow. I had no idea the whole world's up and moving.
So you had traffic and weather together, and then you had little 5-minute increments, and then did you have topics in the 5 minutes, or just go off the top of your head?
No, I mean, I tried to have something, and
notes. You actually cared about that, where you brought in notes.
So now he's hurt that I don't have my notes here. Of course I had notes, and they were staring over. There's a young lady, Rose, who did the news, a young producer named Zach, great people. They're there every day, so they know the flow of the show. And they did kind of look over and say, wow, what's that? And I said, those are my notes. Joe Buck called him the beautiful mind. He said, you look crazy.
Did you bring Joe in?
No, but has commented on my notes and called them beautiful. He calls them the beautiful mind notes because I look like I'm insane and I'm just scribbling. But it does help. You have something to go to. Much like this show, Dan, we could do golf. We could talk. We could break down the Battlehawks interior line if you'd like.
I don't really want to because I couldn't tell you. I knew they played this weekend. I just didn't see the final score.
Hey, Thursday, pal. You listen here, pal. Sunday, we had 3 of the 4 bringing home the W. The Blues' final home game. They won.
I watched the Masters, bro.
Battlehawks won.
Tee shot to tee shot.
City SC won. Cardinals lost, so 3 out of 4, and I knew you were – even when I texted, are we good for tomorrow? Dan waited hours to text back. I thought, oh, he's knee-deep. He's watching the Masters.
You didn't watch the Masters at all?
No, I watched some of it over the weekend.
How do you not watch the Masters?
Sunday, I was at City Park because Fox – had the local soccer game.
Oh, I can imagine. Hey, guys, I'm doing a
post game.
Oh, you were doing a post game. I'm down on the field, guys. When you guys go running back, here's a pat on the rear.
No pats on the butts. No ownership high fives. But we did have the game, and it was a lot of fun because Klaus hadn't scored in a while. He scored. City hadn't won a game in a while. A lot of ties. They won. It was great. And your buddy Mark Abel was helping with guests. We had the team president on, Diego. Then we had Lutz, Pfannenstiel. Then we had the coach, Bradley Carnell, and we had Klaus. It was great. Live TV, buddy.
So did you have to fill at any point between the interviews?
We had an hour-long show, which is a massive.
And you were by yourself?
I was by myself on the field. Kevin Rhines, my colleague, was inside getting interviews of players. And then Daniel Esteve was in the studio. He loves soccer, and he had Ty Keel with him. So they were doing.
Oh, you were fine then.
They were doing more of the nuts and bolts.
I just thought that it was a camera. And you were down there, and they were just feeding you guys.
Dixie cup, like, all right, what do we got next, guys? Let's go. It did remind me of the early Rams days for me covering that team. It feels like we had a post-game show every week. Maybe there were very few doubleheaders, and I was always the locker room guy, and they would always lose. And thank God for Keith Lyle and Todd Light. I probably interviewed those guys 400 times.
Did you ever tell them thanks?
I talked to Lyle a little bit over the year. I love Keith Lyle.
What's he doing now?
I think he's retired, lives in Florida. He's one of those guys who will tweet out every once in a while, and they're like inspirational quotes.
Oh, cool.
Like, I remember talking to him. His dad played in the NFL, not prominent, but we were just talking. And I said, oh, because your dad was in the league, did you grow up around like the clubhouse, the locker room? He goes, man, my dad was an asshole. And I said, oh, okay. And he just told.
Sounds like a guy with inspirational quotes.
Well, no. But he just told, he kept it real. And then he told me years later.
Keep it real, dog.
He went to the Redskins.
Just keeping it real.
He told me there's 1 year, and it was Marty Schottenheimer. If you look at the resume, I forget. They might have been 8-8, but Schottenheimer only lasted 1 year in D.C. And Keith Lyle was on the team. And I ran into him at a golf tournament or something. We were talking about it, and he said, man, Marty tried to, turn on all the veterans, and he goes, he calls a meeting, and he went after Bruce Smith. Like Bruce Smith, legendary defensive end, the former Buffalo Bill. And he goes, man, after that meeting, we all said, we're with Bruce. And he goes, we all walked out. He goes, that was the end of that.
So I got to go back to the soccer.
Okay.
Did you know what kind of questions to ask?
Well, Dan, I wasn't doing...
Because you're not a technical guy. I myself...
You know more about soccer than I do, for sure.
No, I don't. I don't know the technicalities of it or the ins and outs. I'm enough to get through some interviews, probably like you can.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it, to be honest, okay, so Diego is the team president. He came over from London. He's been involved at an international level with the game, so I wanted his perspective on what he sees here, having been in. He said, well, I moved here from Manchester, England. I said... They kind of like soccer over there, don't they? That much I know. So those were a little more broad-based. With Lutz, a little more technical. I'm willing to admit I'm a slight fraud because I did see on X, on the Klaus goal, somebody talked about the great build-up. So when we're talking about the goal, I said, how about that build-up? Just enough to pretend. But when we went back to the studio, Ty Keel played at a high level. So they did a little more of the technical breakdown.
Okay.
But Lutz came out, we're in the commercial break, and he's rolling through the stats, and he goes, if you look at the percentage, he's German, I can't do it, but he said, look at the percentages. He said, we had the ball 35%. He said, that's exactly what we want. his brain analytically was going down. He said, look at their shots, none on target. We defended well, and he had a great breakdown. So then, of course, I come out and, well, you really dominated in the shots and you defended well. Kind of like the news anchor who steals all your thunder.
Oh, sure.
Before they send it over to you, the prompter might be sitting there. And now the sports guys mostly just come on after an animation goes, ooh, it's time for sports. But it used to be they would toss it to you. And if the prompter is sitting there with words and it says, Cardinals have really been struggling lately, but they found a way to win today, whatever. The news anchors, especially early in my career in the little towns, would look at that, and I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they would say verbatim what I was about to say because they could see it.
Then you got to think on the fly.
Yeah, and they'd like, well, Martin's here now, and boy, the Cardinals have been struggling, but they found a way to win today. Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Now, we haven't done a great talk since, it's been 3 or 4
I think
weeks.
before the whole NCAA tournament even.
No, we did that.
Did we break it down?
Yeah, we broke that thing down, the UConn Invitational.
Yeah.
I would say this, though, for a guy that's in news and a guy that's in radio, opening day for the Cardinals, I'm sure you wore a red tie. You had your red glasses on. Everybody around town, including the news anchors, including yourself, got to wear red. Got to be a supporter.
I don't think I had a tie on that day because it was so cold on opening day. I think I had like an overcoat and a red zip up under it or something. I think that's what I did.
Is it mandatory that you have to wear red?
It's understood. I've told that story where Charlie Marlowe, his first year in the market, all these people, I'm not saying little old ladies, but a lot of people emailed. A lot of people are emailing, and they said, who's this guy? He doesn't even know how we do it because he wore like a brown suit. And there were so many emails. He said, all right,
You're
that's
being
it.
serious.
100%. And he said, oh, frick's sake, next year I'll wear a Santa Claus outfit if it makes everybody happy. I said, it's just easier to do it. But I don't think I had a red tie in the field that day because it was so flipping cold. It was miserable.
What'd you think of the hiring of Josh Schertz? I guess it was a foregone conclusion. You've been all over this story. You were there when basically the dismissal of Travis Ford. You were the first to report that. And then Josh Schertz gets the call to be the new head coach at SLU coming from Indiana State. I guess the next thing is now all his guys are going to transfer in. It seems like that'll be the case.
Well, I think we were presuming that. Now, Jason Kent, who's one of his better players, just picked Texas before he could visit SLU, which means they probably, what do they call it, Dan? They gave him the bag, I think, is what they say sometimes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. So he's one that's off the board, but the entire starting 5 has eligibility. They all went into the portal. The fun one, of course, is Robbie Avila, Robbie Buckets, Robbie Goggles. They call him Steph Blurry, Larry Nerd, all the great nicknames because he's got the goggles. He's apparently coming to town this week to visit. Isaiah Swope was a great three-point shooter for Indiana State. He's coming to SLU to visit. So I think you still might get a couple of them, not all of them. Gibson Jimerson is coming back. He played for Ron Ecker when he was first recruited.
So is that official?
Yeah, he's coming back.
For his 17th year.
I think, and there's so many great jokes. He's going to just crush the record book.
Should.
He has to because he's going to be, I think it's his 6th year officially. But Schertz, I was down there last Monday for the introductory press conference. And
did he win the press conference?
I don't know. Remember the last time I think I heard that was Scott Linehan.
Got to win it.
He won the press conference. I'm like,
yeah.
But did he win any games?
That's that's my point. Go win games.
No, and it's a media fixation to say that they won the press conference. After Linehan had a great introductory, very likable. He was a very likable guy, not a great head coach. I don't think I'm out on a limb. That summer, Chris Collinsworth is in town. And I said, hey, we just got a new coach. I said, what do you're around the NFL. Tell us about our new guy. It's kind of Scott Linehan. And he was like, this guy, he gets it, man. He just got it when you're around him. And I was like, Ever since then, I've taken Collinsworth insights with a little grain of salt because I'm like, you couldn't
just
have been
because of one mess up?
Well,
come on, man.
It just seemed like, and I have nothing against Collinsworth. I'll never forget that. My guy Mo Drummond always says to me, remember who's got it? And we still joke about it because he won the press conference. But Josh Schertz, very likable guy. The Majerus comparisons are almost comical because, yes, this guy is also short, fat, bald, all those things. He references it and said, listen, I like to eat. I get it. He said, but I love Coach Majerus. When I was a young kid, like in college, He went out and spent 4 weeks at a Majerus clinic, so he had a little bit of that in his DNA. Dr. Chaffetz loves Rick Majerus, still tells great Majerus stories, and they've always kind of tried to get back to that moment in time where Majerus had built it up, kind of fell apart under Jim Cruz, even though they went to 2 tournaments. So this guy apparently is a savant, they like to say, but a very pleasant guy. He was at the soccer on Sunday. I don't know if they call it the soccer.
He was on the pitch.
He was on the pitch, ceremonial coin toss. He threw out the first pitch for the Cardinals last week. Guy's been all over town, and it would be fun to get it. I like Travis Ford a lot. You and I talked on Great Talk, I think early in the season, hey, this is a big year because they'd kind of flattened out. And I'm sure, and I've talked to Travis a little bit since he was let go.
How's he doing?
I think he's good. I mean, he got a bag. I think he's going to be okay. I think he's at least taking this year off, and maybe he's done. Maybe you just do a little bit of TV here or there, or just enjoy your life. He loves St. Louis, and I don't think he's going to get a prominent job offer. So do you want to pack up and live in Podunk State? And I don't know. But I think he would tell you, and we haven't talked about this. The last time we talked, we were talking about the tournament and how it's going to expand and how that stinks for everybody. And we were talking more big picture stuff. But I think he believes COVID just kind of came at the worst time. He had his best team, and things just kind of went sideways. And really the year after the COVID shutdown is when they really had all kinds of problems where their team was sick, and they had, again, Javante Perkins and Jimerson and Collins and their best group. So it just, some of it is, hey, that's life. Some of it's timing. So Josh Schertz, welcome aboard is what we like to say, Dan.
We're coming to you from the Lou Fuse Automotive Studios, Fuse.com. New or used vehicles, doing great things in our community with the kids at Fuse Athletic, Fuse.com. Also, the Ascension Charity Classic. We enjoyed our kickoff to the Ascension Charity Classic last Thursday, wrapped it around the Masters. We were at X Golf, and a lot of folks jumping in and supporting the Ascension Charity Classic. Want to tell you about Lordo's Diamonds, that special someone in your life. Go to lordos.com, located in the heart of Ladue. That's Lordo's Diamonds, best jeweler in St. Louis. And then you and I, we love our boys over at Triad Bank. They are the best. Triad Bank for all your banking needs. Walk in, get a cup of coffee with Jim Regna. He'll set you straight on all your banking needs.
Jim Regna, the CEO, of course, there. If you're a business owner, you know the drill. Do a little more business working with Triad Bank. We're in the Pasta House studios as well, Dan. These are big studios. Kids eat free on Sundays. You already knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Order your food online at pastahouse.com. Everything's made fresh daily. Everything is awesome at the Pasta House. We have Marita Villa Senior Living, corner of Clayton and Wideman Road. It's a beautiful spot for your retirement years. They've been there since 1960. Appliance discounters, real simple, biggest names, lowest prices. All the major brands, including General Electric, lowest prices, theappliancediscounters.com, and the MAC, the Missouri Athletic Club. Dan, they have 2 locations, downtown, the original, and then the West Clubhouse, mac-stl.org. Great for fitness, dining, whatever you're looking for, they have it at the MAC. I was at the Lou Fuse Fields on Sunday.
And that was for soccer?
I was there at lacrosse. Daughter plays lacrosse. I was there at 8 a.m.,
a little windy, a little chilly.
8 a.m. till 2 p.m.
Oh, till 2
p.m. I had to duck out a little early, but it was a long day of lacrosse. But I was going to tell Randy, internet reception was better. I mean, I've complained about it.
You need to text him and say we talked about it on Great Talk.
Yes, I was saying the reception was better. I was listening to music, podcasts. When you got to watch lacrosse for 6 hours, you might listen to a few things.
Yeah.
You got time.
Got to make some phone calls.
Concession stand was great. So back at it, Lou Fuse right there on Creve Coeur Mill Road. Love the folks at Lou Fuse Fields.
Haven't really talked about the Cardinals. They're off to a 7-9 start. They'll be in Oakland tonight after dropping 2 or 3 against Arizona. Just don't get buried in this first month. That's my whole thing. You get through the first month, 2 above, or 2 below as well. I think you're 500. I think you're going to be okay. I really do.
That was my opening day premise with both John Mozeliak and Ali Marmol. I asked them both the same thing. Dan, we do that because then we can butt the bites together.
Yeah, for sure.
They answer the same question. You put them together. But I said, with all your injuries right now, do you just kind of want to survive April? This is after they came back from San Diego and L.A., which is a tough start. And I said, you want to just kind of survive. And they both said, we're not looking to just survive. So I get it. They're not going to agree to that premise publicly, but I do think it's true. When last year you were 10-19 and you never were able to recover. I mean, 10-19 is a big hole to dig out.
It is.
So I think right now you're kind of treading water a little bit. The thing that's concerning is the offense is, and you said it, I was talking about pitching, but is the offense going to be there on a nightly basis? And they do seem to have a good lineup, but yet there's a lot of games where there's zeros or one. It's really too quiet too often is what I would say.
It's dependent on your corner guys. Goldschmidt,
Yeah.
Arenado. I mean, you can have others that, like Mason Wynn, off to a great start. Herrera, off to a great start. Lars
Do you remember
Nootbaar.
much about Herrera? Like, did he get hyped a lot, or was he kind of?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, he was pretty hyped, and then he
Okay.
came up 2 years ago and was, in my mind, he was overmatched, but he doesn't look overmatched anymore.
Right.
I mean,
just
he looks like he's ready to play at this level.
I just didn't think we heard a lot about him, and maybe I wasn't studying the minor leagues as much as I should, Dan. I do that most nights, late at night.
Sure.
I do my minor league report that I put out. But I feel like he was kind of below the radar a little bit in terms of, hey, this guy's going to be pretty good. I don't remember hearing that.
Yeah, he was highly thought of. He was moving up the prospect rankings. You don't hear a lot about catchers all that much, at least in my mind, here recently. And he was the one that stood out. They have Pedro Pajes, who they like as well. He was called up, never got into a game, I don't believe. And
I like to call him Pete Pages.
Well, that's fine too.
Sure.
Whatever. Just as long as you stick in the major leagues, they can call him whatever you want. But, Herrera was a guy that was thought of highly. And then he was backing up Yachty for a little bit in that brief 2022 season. But at the plate, just looked overmatched. And a lot of guys looked overmatched because everything just comes so fast. It's just you're brought into the major leagues. It's a whirlwind, and you've got to sometimes, for some players, be eased into that, and maybe he's one of those players.
I think he's been a nice surprise. I think Wynn's bat has been a nice surprise.
Yeah.
There was a lot of concern about could he hit at the big league level. I mean, not concerned, but, until he does it on a regular basis. So I think right now, and maybe Sonny Gray gets himself conditioned and healthy where he becomes a 6-7 inning pitcher, maybe that stabilizes all of your rotation. But I think so far they're kind of what we thought they'd be, which is okay. Not as bad as last year, but not special. But we still got a long way to go, Dan.
Sonny Gray made his Cardinal debut. It went about as well as you could expect. He went 5 innings, 64 pitches. I believe he'll go tonight or tomorrow. I can't remember. But if you have a guy every fifth day that can get you a win, then that to me is an ace. If he stops a losing streak, he can help you. We'll see what happens if they get to postseason play. But regular season-wise, if you can go out and stop a losing skid and every fifth day gives you a chance to win, then you have something there. The rest of the pitching staff has been kind of what you thought. Give you some innings. Lynn's going to give up his fair share of home runs. Gibson will have a clunker mixed in there. Michaelis, it'll be off and on with his starts. One good one bad one. He's now 35. You can't forget that. So the pitching staff, to me, is kind of where you thought it would be. And let's see what this team looks like when they finally get healthy. Dylan Carlson gets healthy. That'll allow you to drop Victor Scott probably to the minor leagues, which is where he needs to go. He's overmatched right now. He's great defensively, but it's tough to watch him at the plate because he's overmatched.
He is a lot of fun, though. He is fun.
I'll say this. I was at a place over the weekend, and when he pops up, everybody stops and watches. Yeah, he's still a popular player to watch.
Everybody's going to go nuts when he gets sent down, but it's true. He probably needs a little more time. He did play college baseball, which helps. The roster is weird because you have so many of these older players, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, Michaelis, these guys that have been around, and then you look over and say, Gorman's only 23. Wynn and Walker are like 22. You have this huge gap. And I think it was Kyle Gibson who said it on opening day. He said, yeah, we've had some jokes around here. He said, it's pointed out that Dylan Carlson and I have the exact same birthday, 11 years apart. And he said, he goes, we've had some of those kind of conversations. So it is weird where you've got this big gap. I think Arenado getting going a little bit in Arizona, or at least on Friday, is encouraging. He had not homered since like the middle of August last year. And
it had been almost 38 or 39 games.
So that's a long stretch without a home run. So you definitely need to get him going. And then they go out to Oakland. I'm not going to read the schedule, Dan. But that's a whole nother mess for Major League Baseball. They're
Terrible.
going to Sacramento, then they're going to Vegas. We think they're still going to Vegas. So I'm excited because right now, Dan, there is a plethora of sports to talk about. Now, the Blues season is done. They've got one more game. They're done. Doug Armstrong basically told the fans, we're probably not going to make the playoffs. He said that at the beginning of the year. He said, if everything goes well, we're going to finish third in our division. That means we're getting in. Okay, they didn't finish third, then they didn't quite get the wild card. It's kind of hilarious that you can just tell everybody. It's like when Jeff Luhnow took over the Astros. I remember his first press conference. He said, this is going to take at least 5 years. And I thought, that's genius. Just tell everybody.
Gives you all that
5
leave, that
years.
wiggle room.
And they knew what they're doing. They're in the tank, and they're going to build it back up. And Army kind of did. Hey, listen, folks. So nobody seems disappointed. This team, well, they came close to being the 8th best team in the West. Everybody's happy with it.
If you got to 96 points, you were in. 96 to me was that's where a team last year had 96 points and got in. You're going to be just shy. You're going to have 90-plus points and be just shy. A couple of things, though, that stand out. The emergence of Jake Neighbors, the re-emergence of Jordan Bennington, and Robert Thomas had a fabulous year. People don't talk enough about it, but he's one of the top centers in the game, undoubtedly.
And quietly, Kyrou is going to end up with 33, 34 goals, or wherever he's at now, 31, 32. Still can frustrate fans on a pretty regular basis. You're right. Those are some real positives.
What if he wasn't making the money?
Kyrou? If he's just a young kid.
Yeah.
And he hadn't gotten the
man,
contract.
this guy, this is somebody to build around. This is a cornerstone piece, which he is. But, man, when you mix in the money in these things, it changes everything. Going back to Mason Wynn for just a moment, people talk about him sitting. Maybe that's the reason he's off to a good start, is because he's fresh.
Getting his rest.
Yes. But now let's go back to Kyrou.
I'm interested in that topic because I'm trying to think. This is off the fly, on the fly, off the wall, on the fly, off the record. Contracts that equaled sort of not disdain, but like fan frustration or anger. I think Matt Holliday was a great example when he got his contract. It was before Albert's deal was up, and I think the Cardinals were making sure they hedged their bets a little bit, had to lock one of the sluggers in. And I think people are always mad at Holliday. Well, this guy makes $110 million. This guy I felt like all of the Holliday critique was related to his contract. And you're right with Kyrou.
Which it should be to an extent. If you're making the big money, that's part of it.
It's part of the deal. And Kyrou got locked up. Hey, be mad at Doug Armstrong for locking him up at that time and giving him $8 million a year. And Armstrong said, this is the way it works in hockey. We couldn't wait too many more years or it's not getting done. So what are the other examples? Like when the Rams players were coming up, like Marshall and Kurt, they got the bag. Nobody complained. Tino Martinez, maybe just overall critique. He got the big free agent deal. Also just didn't like it in St. Louis, which led to more critique.
And he wasn't Mark McGuire.
Yeah. And
that was part of it, too.
He was the guy after the guy.
Yeah.
And he kept talking about New York this and wanted to be in New York. There's no doubt about it. But I'm trying to think of some other, there's certainly, the Blues signed Jay McKee, and it just didn't work out, and you're mad because the signing was bad. Cardinals have had bad signings. Fowler, people were down on him, and they gave him a lot of money.
That's the one I was going to go to.
You're going to say, but I think, were they mad at the contract, or were they just mad at the performance? That's what I'm trying to remember.
A little bit of both, and he's a former Cub and was brought in to reduce the power of the Cubs, I think, to an extent, and then to come in and play center field and be a cornerstone player for those teams, and he just wasn't. You got to live up to the deal. He didn't live up to the deal.
I do love in pro sports, there's no comp in the business world where you go to so let's just say they signed Fowler to $80 million, doesn't work out. At some point it's obvious it didn't work out, second year, third year, whatever. And you go to Mr. DeWitt and you're John Mazzell and say, hey, Bill, this Fowler thing, guess it didn't work. All right, what should we do? Well, we'll trade him. We'll let him go. Whatever. Okay, what else? Hey, this one guy, what was the pitcher with Cecil? Yeah, what did he get, $30 million? Didn't work out. And then you say, okay, no problem. There is no comp in the business. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You go into your boss and say, hey, Bob, yeah, I just cost us $10 million. Hey, don't worry about it. You want to grab lunch? Like there's no. I love how that works in pro sports, and every team and every league does it. Makes a mistake, and it's like, oh boy, that cost us $50 million. Well, it didn't work out. Well, how much did that cost? $30. It didn't work out.
In sports, though, it's for everybody's consumption, right? I mean, you're out
it's
there.
all on the table.
Everybody sees it.
But in the business world, we don't read about it.
That's my point.
It's not a headline in the paper or maybe in some of the business journals, but those people are probably getting fired. Like, hey, how you doing, Bill? Did you just waste $20 million? I did. Yes, I did. And you still work here? Like, there's no comp for it. But I think Matt Holliday, and then he eventually kind of won everybody over because he was a great player and he's a great guy, and now comes back and is embraced and is well regarded. But early on, and it wasn't his fault, kind of like Kyrou, like, hey, they gave me the money, they signed me to stay here, and there's no doubt they did that with Albert in mind. I think Justin Falk got signed by the Blues or brought in because they thought Petro might be leaving. And they were like, we got to have an anchor defenseman. You know, they kind of knew that. And people were mad at Falk a little bit, now maybe less so.
I wonder if we wrap it up on this. Scotty Scheffler seems to be an amazing human being. I'll say this. We don't know. We take in and think that these guys are great people. We don't know for sure. But on the outside looking in, he seems to be an amazing human being. If you have a villain that wins the Masters, we're probably talking about that first and foremost. It's just Scotty Scheffler. It's like, ho-hum, wins again, second Masters, great guy, is not going to give you a soundbite that's outlandish, and that's just the way it goes. If it was the other side of this, and he was a villain or a live player or came from nowhere to win this thing, we're talking about the Masters, probably this entire great talk.
Well, is part of it, though, that it wasn't a great dramatic finish.
Part of it.
He pulled away. I think if the Super Bowl is 50-10 or whatever, then you're not as, it was a great game. You're like, oh, yeah, they won. Oh, yeah, that was good. I think that's part of it. You're right. He's not controversial, to his credit. But I also think pulling away, winning by a big chunk you want that Sunday drama. You want somebody won back with 18 on 18.
The back nine having 3 or 4 guys within a shot at the Masters. That's what makes it great, because anything can happen. They also said goodbye to Vern Lundquist, one of my favorites.
How old? Mid-80s? He's up there for sure.
I think he did 40 Masters too.
Yeah, I think love Vern. There's a guy. It's tough to be a network announcer and not have some detractors. Does anybody hate Vern Lundquist?
No.
Does anybody have a negative
Golf fans,
opinion?
Football fans,
right?
SEC every
Basketball,
Saturday.
he called the Leitner shot.
Yeah.
No, Vern Lundquist, and seemingly is a gentleman. Like, everybody says that, and just has kind of that perfect Southern charm.
Yeah,
but it's not too syrupy or too Southern. I mean, it's more Texas than Southern, but. Which I guess is the South, Dan. Texas is still in the South, but you know what I mean.
I do. What else do you need to get off your chest?
I think I'm good. I wanted to kind of get back here. It feels good it's kind of like a homecoming weekend, you know.
Sure it is.
Ran around the quad naked earlier, but it's good to be back at the Scoops headquarters. I think we've talked a little Blues. We'll get into it later in this offseason, Dan. I'm concerned that they won't be able to change dramatically next year, but that's for another day. Battlehawks are coming home this weekend, I think, unless they're out of town, which they might be. Either way,
you're either home or you're out of town.
Either way, they're playing this weekend. I was down there for the dome opener, Dan. Rowdy crowd down there. Let's see, we took care of the soccer. I got you a win on Sunday. I take credit for that.
Sure you do.
It's our only game of the year.
I was going to ask you that. That's the only one on Fox?
Yep. And to City's credit, they were excited about having it on over-the-air free TV, because not everybody is buying Apple MLS Plus to watch all the games. So it was fun. I'll be curious to look at the ratings. And I mean, maybe we nerd out on it more than other people do, but the game was going on during the Masters. The Blues had the Blues were done. Cardinals overlapped with the soccer. Battlehawks overlap with it. And the Battlehawks are a strong ratings force. I don't know entirely exactly why they're so into it, but the first game, we had it on Fox, road game, pretty good ratings number, so I can't wait to dive in. I'm going to do a deep dive, Dan, next Monday on the Sunday ratings. How about that?
Deep dive on
Great Talk.